And it's nice to meet you, by the way.
Hey, oh yeah, it's great to meet you too, Dan. What's going on, everyone? I have a very special guest on the call today. We have Dan John, who's a really big name in the lifting community. He's written some awesome books. What's going on, Dan? How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great. We've got a whole bunch of my family in town. We've got a wedding this weekend. My brother-in-law is getting married, and I'm the best man. And so in my gym today, right now, we have 20 people, all trying to get pretty for the wedding, And, well, of course, the regulars, too. So life is good. I mean, it's kind of cool. I mean, I think being 57 and being a best man is a little weird, but, I mean, honestly, let's be honest. No matter what I do, come on, here's the joke, but I'm the best man. Go ahead. There you go.
And I hope I'm expecting some awesome best man speeches at the
Uh,
wedding.
yeah, well, here we go. I'm working on it.
One of those wedding crasher speeches. You look just beautiful in that white dress, but you better enjoy it because you won't be able to get away in a white dress again after this, will you?
I like it. Okay, so rewatch Wedding Crashers at Four Weddings and a Funeral. Thank you. Good homework. Yeah, things are good. Things are good.
Yeah, rewatch Wedding Crashers. That is definitely numero uno. But now let's get down to brass tacks. You know what? It's actually a funny story how we did this podcast because I've been wanting to reach out to you for some time, but I just I kind of procrastinated because I'm like you're this big guy, so I wanted to kind of build up the repertoire before getting you on. And then what happened was you actually came across my stuff.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
mean, yeah, it was.
If you don't mind me telling the story, my friend, he's been my intern, and now I would say he's a colleague and maybe in some ways a mentor to me, Mike Warren Brown. And we were discussing this issue that we come into all the time is that I think sometimes, you put up something on YouTube and someone will call me a fat, you know, fill in the blank after that. Why would I listen to this guy? Well, because, I'm one of the best Highland Game guys there is. Well, I'm a big guy, because I throw shit far, that's what God wants me to do. And but I'm very fascinated, and I get clients who say, "Well, I want to look better. I want to, and I want this and that." And frankly, my answer, I mean, and so Mike and I have been discussing this for a while and so we found your work, and I was very interested because, you and I both intermittent fast, which I think is great. I think for the older athlete, you have to intermittent fast. This idea, eating 6 meals a day, once you hit, well, I can tell you for sure 50, but probably even earlier, 40, 35, fat just leaps at you, man. You walk down the street, smell a bagel, and your butt gets bigger, and it's stunning. So you talk about intermittent fasting. I like intermittent fasting, and the thing I think really drew me was when you have those four lifting markers, those four the chin up, the incline bench, the barbell curl, and is it the military or the
Yeah,
dip?
yeah, the military press.
The military. Okay, I was going to say the dip, but I didn't think that was right. And it's just your ideas. And the other thing that I liked about you was, there's a place for that other stuff in your world. I'm applauding you. This is straight down the line. You're getting applause from me. So your concept of getting strong, intermittent fasting, and then everything else being pretty reasonable, I looked at that and was like, yeah, okay. If you take what we believe in our training world to get people ready for throwing things farther or playing football or playing baseball, but if you are the guy, you are the segue into if you want to look better as a male or even maybe as a female, you're the guy. I started reading your work and I bought the Greek book, the Warrior book.
And I had the aggressive fat loss one too. Um,
Oh, did you look it up? Did you? Yeah, an aggressive fat loss.
oh no, I didn't look it up, but that was my third course. I released another course a few months ago as like a instant launch, and then I'm actually doing the public launch of my superhero course a few months down the line. I didn't know you got my work. That's amazing.
And so well, I mean, if you really want to be a big kid in this industry, I would say, or any, I mean, seriously, if you're a theologian, you better read what people who disagree with you write about you too, because you'll never really fully understand what you believe. So when I was reading your work, I thought, you and I link up on so many places, and you're far better than I am on those areas that it. And to be frank, I mean, this is a whole area that if you don't mind me, what we talked about before we started is you and I use the exact same tools. Barbell. I use kettlebells. I use TRXs. I use rocks, stones, bags, everything. But our goals for our clients are just different. The mistake people who read us might be is this. You and I use the same tools, but we just have different goals. And so people try to get in, especially on the internet now, because it's the land of the foolish out there, is they begin to think that you and I are saying different things, but really we're just on a different, our client might just be on a different path. And if you want to be a Division I shot putter, you just can't worry about your waistline for, for a while. But I'll tell you this, when you retire, let's talk about that waistline as fast as we can. Let's get you to at least, I used a 2-to-1 ratio for my former athletes. So your waist should be half your body height. And I know you're down about 45%, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm about 45%. But yeah, I've heard people talk about the 50% as like, for just general good health.
Good health, for good health. And obviously, if you're, but the thing is, let's be honest, if you've bench pressed 700 pounds and squatted 800 and clean 400, getting that waistline back down to 31 inches is going to be, because I have that classic throwers problem. We call it the turtle belly, where I have abs, but I'm just huge. You get that, most of my friends have that umbilical cord hernia. I have it. It's starting to hurt, so I'll probably go get that. It's a very quick surgery. They say that the anesthesiologist is the longest thing. That takes 8 minutes. The surgery takes 1 or something like that. But I've got that in, and I'm not saying it's a good thing. In fact, I'm saying it's a bad thing. But, when we're talking about goals, sometimes you have to, if you're going to play in the National Football League, you're going to have brain trauma. It's not a secret anymore. So every goal set has problems. If your body gets to be looking too good, you're going to have problems with that. Women will chase you, and you won't be able to enjoy a day at the beach. The women will be chasing you like one of those Benny Hill,
That's the kind of problems that I don't mind.
Well, I'm just saying, bro.
Yeah.
But it's really nice to meet you. I got to tell you, I've really liked your work. Yeah.
That is, you have no idea how honored and flattered I am to hear that. Get those accolades. So let's talk a bit about the types of people, athletes that you work with predominantly in your training. You mentioned throwers, like Olympic lifters. Do you work with other athletes?
I work a lot with the military. In fact, the bulk of my time now is with the military. It's interesting. If you're 18 years old, it's hard to listen to me and my concepts of reasonableness and but when you're say 28 years old and you've been in the service for 10 years, suddenly I get a lot smarter. So I do a lot of work with the military, a lot of work, and then I work with. It's nice. I work with Major League Baseball. I just got invited again to speak at their winter training, and I work with a couple teams. I work with the NFL. I've done workshops for the NBA at their gathering, which is later in the year, which is a great honor. I do a lot of work with personal trainers. I do workshops, which is great. I actually enjoy that. I actually enjoy that. It's kind of refreshing to work with somebody that's just this is going to sound mean, but they're kind of like puppies. When you're working with let's be honest. I worked with a football team this year, and they're clamoring to fire the head coach. When they fire the head coach, they fire all the strength coaches. And so when you're talking to people whose livelihoods are, that thin razor, they're right on the edge. They're wonderful to work with, but at the same time, these guys, where when you work with a personal trainer, it's more like, yay, and we're going to learn this exercise, and we all clap our hands, and it's a lot less stressful to work with the personal trainers and the fitness professionals on that scope. So yeah, I have a pretty interesting career. I really do. I really enjoy it. It's a rare weekend I don't give a workshop, and It's funny to even clear out something like a wedding this weekend. I had to X this out months and months ago, uh, and I still get phone calls. Well, can you come in on Friday? No, I have rehearsals. You know.
Why? That is crazy. Yeah. So I mean, you mentioned working with the military. So how did that come about, and what types of how do you I guess you coaching these people or design them programs, or how does that work?
Well, it's funny, Rich. I don't know if you know who Mark Twight is. He's
Yeah.
most famous. Okay, so Mark and I, Mark would call me up every so often and say, "Will you help? I'm working with these guys. Can I come? Can you come over? Can we bring them over and you show them some stuff?" And so we'd bring them over, and my wife and Lisa, Mark's wife, would they'd start grilling up, about 80 pounds of meat, and
Mhm.
I would take these guys and train them, and we'd sit on the deck. And famously, one time, a guy leaned over to Tiff and said, "If anything ever happens, I got you covered." Okay. And so later that night, Tiff said, "What did he mean by that?" I go, "I'm starting to think these guys are a little, you know, special, and so that's how I got involved.
Few
And
screws.
yeah, and so these guys were, these guys were an elite force, and I got involved that way, kind of through that back door. I was trustworthy. The thing is, if you know your place, I'm good at your niche. My good friend Mark Fisher, he's in New York, Mark Fisher Fitness. He's the one who taught me this, and so did Tom Plummer. In this industry, you really need to know your niche, or your niche, your niche. And my niche is, I know this stuff. I know how to get you strong in a very easy, fast way, and strong enough that it stays. So as long as I stay in there, I get hired. It's when I try, which is why I read your stuff. I didn't. If someone comes to me and asks me about how to get a 31-inch waistline, I don't know how to do it. So I go spend a lot of money, which I did, reading up on it and finding out. So I ask other experts. So that's how I got involved. It's funny, but like with things like that, I couldn't tell you how I got involved. Well, I mean, people would call me up and say, can I come train with you? And I would, and then they would talk to somebody else, would talk to somebody else, and all of a sudden I'm working with the NFL. So sometimes it's just being good, doing what you can where you can, and it links up over time. And that's how I think that's my whole career in a nutshell. You know.
Yeah, I guess if you think of like the most notorious names in the fitness industry, it's people that have carved out their niche and they don't waver away from that. Because when they do, that they get flack and they're like,
And
okay,
they come off as idiots,
yeah,
absolute idiots. It's laughable. It's like I'll read these articles when they try to. It's like you have to shut up. You're just embarrassing yourself. Yeah. So and you got to, if I was going to give you any advice, Greg, if you can remember that, you'll do fine in this industry. Specialize in, your last blog on the Adonis belt thing. I mean, that's something. If I wrote about the Adonis belt thing, I would. I would get phone calls. I would get phone calls, but that's your niche, and that's not mine, and so I'm not. You follow where I'm heading on this.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because when people are reading our stuff, they're not just looking at what we're writing; they're looking at us as an example. Does it, is it congruent? If I'm talking about training football players, is that congruent? No, I don't play football. I don't train football players, and so like I wouldn't be like I'm not going to be Joe DeFranco.
Right.
And same thing. Like, yeah, you have your niche. And so I guess let's kind of outline some of the differences between training to get really big and strong, and working with athletes like I guess football players or baseball players or lifters. And I guess let's outline kind of your approach and kind of the mistakes that you think people make, and really the most effective way to make those kind of gains.
Well, years ago, I answered this. It took me a long time to answer this question because the correct answer is it depends.
Right.
And that's a terrible answer. So I came up with this thing called the quadrants, and I'll just give them to you real fast, okay? Quadrant one is a very low level of performance, but a lot of qualities. And that'd be like a high school PE class where you learn a bunch of sports and lots of things, but you're not very good at anything.
Mhm.
And everybody needs to do that. Quadrant two is where we get in trouble. That would be the Navy SEALs, that'd be NFL, that would be football. Lots and lots and lots and lots of qualities at literally the highest levels, maybe in some cases, humans can attain. I mean, when you're around an NFL guy who's 6'3" and runs a 4.40, or now 6'7" and runs a 4.40, I mean, that's just when I say it's staggering, it is. But everybody wants to train like they're getting ready for the NFL or being a Navy SEAL. The way you get ready to be a Navy SEAL is you join the Navy. That's it. That's step one. Step two is you stay around the Navy long enough so that you can apply for buds. That's how you do it. You can't go online and pretend you're a SEAL.
Mhm.
But people do it all the time. You can't pretend you're an NFL player. I mean, I can't go to a party tonight and go, yeah, I'm an Oakland Raider. They'd all laugh me out of the bar. Quadrant three is the one that I love because that's probably where most people are. You have one or two qualities at a fairly low level. As a discus thrower, really, there's only two qualities: the technique of throwing the discus and being strong. And the funny thing is, at my peak, I snatched 314, I cleaned 402, I benched 405. Good numbers, but for a power lifter, Olympic lifter, I was kind of a weenie. You follow?
Right.
So even though I had a big engine, when you compare it to the next quadrant, quadrant four, which I'll get to in just a second, a fat loss client, I mean, it's some kind of caloric restriction and some kind of what I call inefficient exercise. Something that's why heavy hands, even though it looks stupid, is so great. You take a weight and you walk with it like this with your hands over. Stupid way to walk, and you burn up. Oh, and you burn up a ton of calories because it's so inefficient. It's much easier to walk with your hands down here, right? And then there's quadrant four, and that's one quality, maybe two, at the highest levels humans can attain. That's running a 900 meters, a 800 meters. That's one quality, absolute speed. Deadlifting 1,000 pounds. That's one. It's truly about one quality, right?
Right.
And what happens is I try to get rid of the "it depends" argument here. If you're following along, I try to get rid of the "it depends." Modern bodybuilding, back in the 70s, they used to tan. Well, nowadays they just spray it on. So modern bodybuilding even has less qualities than it used to have, if you follow. So for me as a strength coach, if I'm your strength coach for your football team, and I have all, say, 65, 75, 85 athletes at a very high level, there's no gap between the strongest and the weakest guys. They're all freaking strong, and we don't win games. Not my fault. We have to blame somebody else. We're all strong enough. As a thrower, once you get, say, that 400-pound bench, you're strong enough. If you're not throwing at world or national standards, it's technical, or maybe it's something inside your head, or maybe you need to pick better conditions to train and throw in. But getting a 500-pound bench isn't as important as you maybe going to Europe and competing, 9 days out of 12 in really high tension areas. You follow?
Yeah, and just if I
Sure.
just jump in, it's funny is what people don't realize is like, hey, a sport like discus throwing, you're throwing a discus that weighs how much?
2 kilos, 4 pounds, 6 ounces. Yeah.
Yeah, 4.4 pounds. Yet most people would be like, well, how is bench pressing 400 or 500 pounds going to help you if you're only throwing a 4-pound object? And that's like I guess it makes sense, common sense rationalization, but there is a method to the madness. Same way there's a method to the madness of someone that's going to run a 4.4 squatting 500-600 pounds. They're not lifting any weight, but they're that power, that engine. I mean, can you speak on that for a bit? Yeah.
About the engine itself, I mean, like training a football player then?
Or I guess like the need to bench press 400 pounds in order to have the strength capacity to throw 4 pounds, because
Yeah.
that differentiate.
And the funny thing is, you make a good point, because all of us go down this great idea that since it only weighs this, the
Mhm.
shot puts only 16. My friend, the late Bish Dolagevich, once told me, you get so strong, the shot put feels like a P-E-A.
Mhm.
But how far can your shot put a P? You
Mhm.
get so strong that you're too strong,
Yeah.
if that can happen. So it's funny because we've actually tried to go the opposite way and use lighter weights and lighter implements to work. And really, honestly, now there's a guy who's going to disagree with me, but his athletes were on stanozol, an anabolic steroid, and a lot of it when he proved everybody wrong on this. So,
So he didn't really prove anyone wrong. He proved that steroids
yeah,
work.
yeah. But so it's funny. It's like it's such a strange thing because what I'm telling you, to be an elite performer, you have to have the courage to see that yin yang between your technique and your strength.
Mhm.
And what you want to do is, and if you don't mind me, I'm making a circle. I hope if they can see it. But so here's what you show up when you first start working with me. You have a basic technique in the throws, and you have, say, you bench press 200 pounds. My job is to expand both sides of that circle to grow you out in both ways. And that's, I think, the job of the strength coach is to work with the developing athlete, but never like that. And I think that's the mistake a lot of people make. They try to blow one side of it out. So when you're trying to, for example, if I want you to get faster, I could send you to a camp where they worked on your technique all week long sprinting. And when they could probably show you a few things that'll cheat the drill. For example, in the 40 yards dash, you can move your hand closer to the line and do all these you cheat the drill. It'll knock 2 seconds off your time, but you're not truly faster. You just cheated the drill.
Mhm.
In a football game, you're not as fast as a guy who ran it poorly.
Mhm.
Well, I could send you to a technique camp, or I could get your squat up to 700 pounds. Now, here's the funny thing. If I just get your squat up to 700 pounds, you might not be as fast anymore because now you weigh 320. No, I'm joking, okay? But you follow where I'm heading with this oversimplification. The correct answer is to squat and deadlift while you're improving your speed sprint techniques.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes, Greg, I think that's where people drop the ball. I think that it's the lowest end of theology is either or. It's the poorest way to talk about anything in life. And that there was a book back in the 70s, Fit or Fat.
Mhm.
Okay, so you're either fit or you're fat. And the funny thing is, I've won some big things, and I was fat that day, but no one measured my body fat composition. And I've been very lean. I picked up a liver parasite in the Middle East, and I was very lean, but I could barely walk up a flight of stairs.
Mhm.
So I wasn't fat, but I wasn't fit. You follow?
Yeah, exactly.
So in sports performance, we live in both and. So you're constant, and it's funny. So you can just see my hands doing this whole. I'm starting to reach off and balance my hands because that's how you coach in the sports world.
Mhm.
And it's a good thing. In fact, you kind of talk about it in your books. If all I do is lean up by going on a starvation diet, and I get my waistline down to 31, but my shoulders shrink to 32, I don't look very good, right?
No, not at all. That's
Yeah,
yeah, Christian Bale, and the machinist.
yeah,
Just
exactly. And so what you need to do is when you talk about body comp issues, you kind of do the same thing. We want to whittle, Vince Gironda's famous line, if you take 1 inch off the waist and inch the shoulders, it's the same as adding 2 inches of the shoulders or taking 2 inches off the waist. But which one is easier? The one is the easiest, right?
Mhm.
So we're very much in the same world on that. And that's what I'm trying to do in my career is kind of say that we all have the same toolkit and we all have different goals, but we all really at this basic level talk the same language.
Yeah, right. And they're like, even though I work with people who primarily looking to improve their aesthetics, look better,
Hmm.
have that beach problem where they're getting hounded by girls or what have you.
I tell you, I have stories, my friend.
and and no, I know you feel my pain. I
Oh, Hey, ladies, okay? There's a brain up here, okay? I can't tell you how many
not
times.
just a piece of meat, okay?
Oh, I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah,
Jeez.
just
Oh, it's hurtful, actually.
it's hurt. It is. It's hurtful. They don't understand. Um, and you work with lifters and throwers and athletes. But even though we have completely different goals in mind, there's a lot of similarities. Like we both focus on key lifts, getting stronger at them. Um, I know that you're not into the extremely high volume camp that a lot of people kind of fall into in terms of yeah, you have a much more simple, more of a minimal approach. Uh,
If possible, yeah.
right. And then but when we both do like intermittent fasting and talk about the effectiveness of that. But then there's I guess the smaller kind of shifts and differences in terms of the smaller details as far as aligning the goals to either really focusing on aesthetics, or really focusing on overall power, sports performance.
Right. And really the big thing in your work, I would say, just you don't your work, you don't emphasize like the squat as much as we do. But then a lot of us have been talking lately. When is enough on squatting? And so I would say you're on one end, and I know some people who are on the exact other end of the continuum.
Mhm.
And as truth usually ends up, it's somewhere probably, no squatting. I don't think you're not a no squatter, but somewhere over there where it says, squatting's bad, and the answer over here where if all the answer to all questions is squatting. I'm sure somewhere in the middle here is the correct answer. But no, I read your work, and I wouldn't. I don't think we're as far apart as you think.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
It's close, and that's why when I was listening to your stuff a couple of years ago, I was really resonating with it a lot. And yeah, it was cool. And yeah, and so yeah, for me, I guess some people when they initially come to my stuff, they get the wrong impression, and that's what I did like a few years ago. I was too polarizing, and no, squatting is really effective. Squatting works as far as
Yeah.
getting tons of lower body strength, putting on size. Um, but there's this point in time where for from my perspective, for a lot of us it's not that hard to get solid strength and size on the legs, where when you've built up your squat and you've been doing it for a couple of years, your biggest issue is catching up like your shoulders and your upper chest and your back.
Well,
As
and then you also get that barrel stomach too.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, if you're going to squat 400, 500 pounds, it might not be in line with looking a lot better. And so yeah, and I think yeah, so for me, I started with a program like Starting Strength and Bill Starr. I did I did a lot of squatting. Um, I think I was squatting like 240 at 16 or 15, 150 pounds for 5. Um, and so yeah, now I have I could have a double body weight squat, but I don't squat very much, which isn't it's double body weight isn't that bad. But if I
No, that's fine. That's
yeah.
that's all that at all. Yeah. In fact, I would suggest. Yeah, it's like I always tell people when I'll write this article for T Nation, and I'll say, you should have a double body weight deadlift, and someone will, put a little note in. Well, I can't do that. Well, there's your problem. Don't until you can deadlift double body weight. Don't ask me about triceps curls or whatever. You got to get stronger. You just it's so simple. It's like it's stealing. It's like drinking water and taking fish oil. It's just not that complicated, and it helps.
Right, yeah, and there's another similarity because um, that's one and same thing. People come to me and they're like, I'm just not because one of the things that I get is I work with people on really putting on muscle, but doing it while staying lean, doing it while holding a lower body fat. So taking some time. So when people complain that they're not gaining weight, they're not gaining size, I'm like, okay, well. it's going to be a process if you want to go from 160 at 10% body fat to 180 at 10% or even leaner. It's going to take a long time. Stop focusing on
Holding on to 10% as you gain mass, dude. That's the holy grail.
right.
I don't know of a harder thing to do than add lean body mass. The second hardest thing is lose body fat.
Yeah.
And yet, I'll get these people who show up and say, well, I want to gain some mass and lose body fat at the same time. You're like, you don't even know what you said. But to put on 20 pounds of lean body mass, well, and to hold it at 10, you'd put on a little bit of fat. But holy cow, that's good luck on that. I mean, that's rough. That might take a while.
Yeah, no, some people they don't realize. Well, actually, a lot of people they think they lost 10 pounds of fat and gained 10 pounds of muscle, but they weren't even close. Because you hear people say that all the time. It's like, yeah, I started working out and my weight's kind of the same, but I put on about 20 pounds of muscle, lost 20 pounds. No, no. No, but so it's funny. So when people come to me and they're like, I'm not really the weight's not coming up. I'm like, okay, the weight will come. Focus on your lifts. If you're adding, 30, 40 pounds to your weighted chin-ups, 40 pounds to your bench, your incline, then there's no way in hell you're going to do that without having a visual difference. So kind of, eat properly, make sure you have that right intake, but don't obsess with the scale because it's not going to change that much. You're not going to be gaining pounds each week, but you can add pounds to your lifts, and when your lifts go up, as you talked about, hitting those markers, double body weight deadlift. As those lifts goes up, your problems dissolve.
Well, yeah, I was running with you in my mind about my great transformation. I put on 40 pounds in 4 months right out of high school. I weighed 162 and I went to 202. And when everyone asked me what the difference was, well, I snatched and clean the dirt, And when you're curling 65 pounds, God bless you, you're a nice person, your mother loves you. When you're cleaning 365, your body says, okay, we're at war. We're gonna, this machine has to get bigger, Now I agree, and that's why I like your 4 lift template. I mean, I think and you're right, man. Your incline bench press goes up. Maybe we can't explain why, but you get bigger, and we all know that. There's not one person listening who doesn't know that, but we forget it. We always want to go back to. It feels good to take 65 pounds and do it for 45 reps and feel all that burn. But not much happens.
No.
The body responds by going, well, that was interesting. What's the problem up there,
Yeah. No, I know it's true, but if you were to slap on 245s and hang from a chin-up bar and bang out 4 or 5 reps, like your body is like, yes, something has to happen. We gotta. And that's one of my favorite ways to kind of get people strong initially is like, look, you can just because people get too caught up in like adding tons of reps to their chin-ups and going up to 20 reps, and usually building up to 20 pull-ups or 20 chin-ups is a long road. It's not linear at all. It's furthest thing. You get up to 8, 10 reps, and then all of a sudden it takes you 2-3 years to get to 20 for most people. Some people but like if you just grab one of those little 2.5 pound plates, you can add that each week to the belt, and that's like a perfect level of progression. Because people try and you can only add 5 pounds total to a bar for so long before it's too much. It's just not happening. Squatting, deadlifting, you can do that for a long time, but upper body lifts, that's why people plateau so fast. If you could add half that, or even like a pound and a half, it's like your body can keep getting stronger. Of course, you're gonna hit plateaus. Maybe you need to switch to dumbbells for a bit or change the rep scheme. But like you can make good solid gains, and someone can go from chinning like body weight to like 35 pounds, and then maybe they need to go to this grip, and so they can just kind of make incredible gains.
It's funny. We think that's exactly the same way we think here. One thing we don't think much here of is linear progression. In my world, we're not big fans of linear progression. Mm-hmm. We believe that life is a little bit chaotic. Mm-hmm. But But that's why what you said, it might take you 5 years to go from 10 to 20. My thought is, well, why would you need 20 reps in the pull-up? Wouldn't it be better to have a half, if you had 50 pounds around your waist and did four, I if the zombie apocalypse happens, like some of you young people think, it'll be more valuable to be able to pull yourself over with zombies grabbing your leg
Yeah.
than be able to do that 20 times. Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is, if you can do a 50 or even 100-pound chin-up for 4 reps, 20 pounds is easy. Like, by getting stronger, the endurance becomes easier. And by doing a 100-pound chin-up, a muscle-up is very easy. So it's funny, like, how the foundation, and this is why, I guess why being able to bench press 400 pounds is helpful for throwing a 4.4-pound discus, is when you build up that strength, everything becomes easier. You can do more push-ups. If you can bench press double your body weight, you can easily do 80, 100 push-ups generally. And so that's like one thing that I really noticed in my work is that I'm focused on the aesthetics, but it's important to get really, really strong. And in getting really, really strong, you're going to be faster. You're going to be able to jump higher. You're going to be able to do more chin-ups. And it's like people miss the boat on that because people are so focused with explosive training, speed training, and endurance training, and they do all this stuff, yet the results are very minimal. Because I did that before. I did the plyometric workouts and this stuff, and I didn't focus on the heavy, strong lifting, and the body is so effective at getting stronger. Like, the body is so good at getting. You can have someone that squats 100 pounds, and in half a decade can go up to squatting 400 plus pounds. That's a 4-fold increase. The body's meant to get stronger, and then when you do that, everything, you're just a new person. But trying to work on endurance, 30 reps of this, the margin is so small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you say about plyos. See, I think plyos work. I think they work once, and I think they work for 6 weeks, and then you're done. And the research on plyos has always been clear. If you can't squat double body weight, you shouldn't do them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go to these high school things, and you'll see a bunch of fat Tommies, doing depth jumps. The poor kid can barely waddle up on top of the box, and he's doing the most elite jump there is. It's like, what are you thinking? So you're right. I mean, all that stuff that comes along, it all works. It all works for about 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. But one thing I have found in my career is that constantly striving for getting stronger seems. Strength is the answer. I mean, it usually is. And
it's funny that people don't want to. Strength is the answer. That's a good title for this subtitle of this podcast. Strength is the answer. And it's funny that not just young guys don't want to kind of do that, but I see trainers all the time working with high school athletes that are weak, and they have them do the advanced plyos you talked about. These are trainers. These aren't even people making their own mistakes themselves. These are trainers that are making mistakes with their clients, getting them to do these depth jumps, getting them to do bands and chains and all these advanced tactics that work contingent on the fact that you've already done your basics. But no one wants to do the basics. No, but it's funny because you're gonna get way better results as doing the basics as a beginner than doing the advanced stuff, because the advanced stuff is meant for very, very slow progression, adding 15, 20 pounds in a year.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that everywhere I go, the best of the best are the masters of the basics. Hmm. When I work with these, put elite and then fill in anything on the back end. If I say the best of the best and say whatever it is, they're always better at the basics. Hmm. They don't do the fancy stuff you think they do. They don't. There are no secret ninja mind techniques that they're doing. They're doing the exact boring thing, but they're doing the exact boring thing better. A good friend of mine, Coach Rick Bojack, told me the key, and then he pointed at me and he said, "You can't get bored." The problem with coaching is you, me. I can't get bored with the basics. We're going to do the basics, and we're going to do the basics, and we're going to do the basics. And then after we're done doing the basics, we're going to do the basics again.
Mhm.
And I wish it was,
I,
I wish it was sexier.
Yeah. And this is not just in lifting, this is in everything, essentially. I mean, even Bruce Lee, I mean, yeah, in his movies he did all his theatrical kicks and moves and jumps and stuff like that. But in reality, with his own personal training and his self-defense system, it was mastering the basics. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, if you watch like stuff like mixed martial arts, these guys aren't like, generally speaking, it's like they master the basic moves. You know, it's high kicks and the elbows and the knees and just and you know, the rear naked choke, the armbar, and like they don't get caught up in some like flying. Sure, you might see that once in a while, but the better fighters are the ones that have that, you know, that jab, a really tight, awesome jab that catches.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so the basics.
Got to strive. If there's a lesson I've learned in my life, if you can, if you have the courage to do it, is strive for mastery. Is to, you know, years ago, I was told by a friend of mine, Tim Carr, who found out that someone I know had never seen me throw the discus. And Tim just kind of went like this. He went, "You throw it so beautifully." And I thought to myself, you know, that's great because I actually tried to be the most beautiful, not face-wise, but technically the most beautiful discus thrower in the world because even at a young age, I realized that if you didn't know what a discus throw was supposed to look like, but you saw me throw and it looked, oh, that looks right. Everything, if it looks, you know, Charlie Francis, looks right, flies right. You know, and that's, anything don't cheat on your incline bench press test to add 5 more pounds. Do it perfectly, do it right, and in the long term, you'll make better progress than having your buddies do that. You know, deadlift. You know, he's deadlifting your bench press. You know that little technique you see at gyms all the time. Master it, make it beautiful, stick with the fundamentals, and I think you'll be happy.
All right, beautiful. I think we're just about ready to wrap up. Are there any final things that you want to say before we close this down? We covered some, you know, really great points about, you know, having your goals in place. Are you training to become, you know, for like athletic event, or actually do you want to look better? Because those matter, and mastering the basics are important for both of them.
Well, and if you don't mind, once again, it's kind of nice to. Well, I hope. Well, okay, let's say it this way. Let me say it this way. I hope I'm modeling the appropriate behavior of what you do when a client comes to you, or when I don't want to say humbled myself because all I did was press a bunch of buttons, but I went in online. I took my advice from Mike Brown. I looked up your work. I read everything you had. I came back. I thought about it for a while. I applied some of it to myself and to my gym, and it worked. And I think the secret here is this, is that you really want to keep moving ahead in any field. You have to know your niche and have the courage to go outside and when you need help. And I just want to appreciate your body of work, and let's keep this conversation going over time, though. Okay?
Oh, yes, definitely. You would be pretty. I mean, yeah, this is a dream come true for sure. Well, we can, and if you ever want to come back on the podcast, I know you're constantly doing amazing speeches and writing awesome articles, and you got so much, you know, new stuff being fleshed out. Well, I guess, you know, technically new stuff, but a lot of it is, you know, basically your core message. But yeah, we can do 2 more podcasts, and yeah, and if there's anything that you need from me, man, I am always there. And I'm honored that, you know, you saw the value of my work, and if you ever want to talk more about anything, let me know. I'm there. So it's been a blast, and for people that want to dig into your work, or, you know, you're an amazing speaker and writer. Where should they go? Your site is danjohn.net, and you've written some awesome books, and you do some awesome speeches. You know, where would be the first place you'd want someone to go and check out?
Well, danjohn.net. You can also find my work on Amazon, but if you go to my website, you can go in and you can get literally, and this is not an exaggeration, thousands of pages of information. I've got those old Get Up newsletters from the, I don't know, I guess they went from 2002 to maybe 2009. There's probably 68 to 10-page newsletters, all for free in there. There's a free How to Throw the Discus book in there. There's weightlifting book that's free in there. My blog goes back a long, long time. Someday I have to actually go back and read what I wrote because it might be interesting. You know how that goes with a blog. You know, you just
Yeah.
adding crap to it. You know, these crazy thoughts that you have one day. But I think danjohn.net would be good. And again, if people have further questions, dan@danjohn.net, and I'll be glad to answer any questions they have. Okay.
All right, awesome. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Till next time.